Mark will be able to shed a little light on those. That's the fruit of our labors from this previous year. Also, hope you've had a chance to look at your packet. In that packet were the minutes from our January 15 meeting. Chair will entertain a motion on those minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I move for acceptance of the minutes as submitted.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Okay, on to new business. We only have one item on our agenda, and that's discussion of our future text amendment projects for the zoning and subdivision regulations. Mark, would you want to give us a little background, or how do you want to kick us off here?
Sure, I can do that, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so, as the chairman said, at your desk is the text amendments for cell towers, manufactured homes, ADUs, and shipping containers that we did. Those were approved by the county commission last week. They will be published in the paper tomorrow, so those regulations will be effective tomorrow officially. There were no changes by the county commission on that, so what was adopted and recommended for adoption by this board was adopted by the county commission. So that's what's at your desk right now. And so I think at this time, we're moving on from those. I think you guys did a good job with that, and we're just looking for ideas on future topics. I have several on my list. You have some topics on your side of the piece of paper that we put together over the years, but I think we're open for discussion on what should be the next topic that we should maybe try and tackle at that point in time. Since we have these adopted, I'll update my list. I've added to my list from what you see here. I still feel that, in the discussion that we should probably still look at maybe not necessarily changing too much, but better defining a lot of this stuff. Home occupations. I still have concerns with parking and loading space requirements, because every time we have a public hearing, it seems like we're doing waivers for parking stall requirements, paving requirements, loading space requirements, and so it's kind of the same thing like we do with variances. If we're going to grant variance every time somebody, doesn't want to do some of the regs, then we just need to change the regs. And so if we're going to grant waivers to everything, then we should just change the regs to something different, with that. And that's not it's not a fault or a criticism or anything like that. It's just, this is what we're doing on both ends here. So I think we need to maybe look at something like that. Again, I think another topic we had talked about in the past a little bit was the topic of public roads and subdivisions. Should they be public roads or should they be private roads? Should we limit the number of lots that we could have off of a private road or not? I've had lots of discussions with people on various other counties' subdivision regulations, and I do have copies of those, and we could try and mirror something that they do. Some require public roads, some don't require public roads, and so it's just going to be kind of a topic of discussion for this board and on what direction we want to go. Same thing with the planting requirements and the rezoning of agricultural land. Currently, when you rezone from agricultural district to a residential district, depending on what zoning district you rezone to, you're going to be required to develop between 8 and 16 residential lots. And obviously many people probably aren't necessarily interested in developing a subdivision, but they would like to maybe have an additional home site on their property. And for your information, as we've had with training, everybody's allowed to have one lot split on their property without going through a big planning process or a rezone process. And you still have to meet the requirements that we set aside for that particular zoning district, but for all intents and purposes, you can have one split on your property without planning. But then what happens when that person, say, wants to have another split on that property. Because when you split it once, it locks down that parcel to where further divisions have to be rezoned and or platted at that time. And so it's something that we could have examples of, we can have further discussion on. Is that a good thing, a bad thing? Should it be revised, from that point?
Mark, how does that play out over time? If I split my lot now and it's now 35 years later and I sell my property and somebody else buys it, can that be split off again, or are our records that intact for eternity, or?
They are. I mean, they should, to answer your question, I mean, if the regulations are the same now as they are in 35 years, then the current regulations would say you'd have to plat your land and or rezone the land to be able to further split. And we're not saying that you can't do that once you split your 40 acres, once you split your 20 acres into 2/10. We're just saying if you're going to further split, now you're going to go through the subdivision platting process here. And it's our job to make sure that that platting process is something that we want to have happen and the reasons behind that.
So the look back is always as far as there are records?
Yep. I mean, it's just like zoning permits. I mean, I have zoning permits on properties that were issued in the 1970s for certain areas of the county. I mean, they're there forever. And I have every single lot split that's ever been filed with the office and approved. And I have a way to look that up to make sure that was split legally. And if it wasn't, then we have to get it into conformance that way. So, yeah, so it lasts forever. Now, if the regulations change, then we would have to adjust with that. But yeah.
Does it happen that people come in 20, 30 years later and didn't even know their lot had been split once?
I don't know about 20 or 30 years later, but, kind of along that same line. When we put that in place in 2016, it was fine because nobody had split their land. Prior to 2016, it was pretty much give me 60 feet of road frontage and 3 acres of land, and you can split your property and build a house if you wanted to. When we put the subdivision regulations in place and started doing more enforcement of that, it's still fine in 2016, 17, 18, but as you go further in time, every single piece of ground is getting split. And so when you take your 40 acres and you divide it into two 20s, a 3, and a 37, somebody that builds on that 37 acres maybe likes that at that time, and then all of a sudden situations change, and now they want to split that house off, or they want to take that 37 acres and split off another 3 acres for another family member or somebody different. And the answer to that is, well, you can't, because back in 2020 or 2025, whenever, we already did one split on that property. So when you split that locked that parcel down until you rezone and plat. And so that's where our regulations come in place. Is that what we still want to do or not?
So does that come up?
It has come up, yeah.
Frequently,
I wouldn't say frequently, but it has come up. It has come up because, each 40 acres of land, because a long time ago, this board, we set the standard of 2 houses per 40 acres of ground. And I think Russ was part of that right in the beginning here. And so then you're allowed to have 2 houses in that 40, and then any further housing that you want out there or any further divisions, possibly a rezone. If it's already zoned residential, then you're not rezoning, but then it's a subdivision plat. And then that's where now you have to develop 8 residential lots. Or if you don't have the acreage to be able to get 8 3-acre lots, then you got to develop the rest of the property to, at least fully develop it out to where, you have the whole idea of what that area is going to look like in the future. So, for example, if you had 20 acres here, you can't just split off another 3 and have a 3 and a 17. You'd have to take that whole 20 acres and develop, say, 6 residential lots. And then you're constructing a public road for all those lots, and then you're doing a drainage plan, and it's a lot of work. It's not saying you can't ever split, so when we say, the parcel's locked down, we're not saying you can never, ever split it, we're just saying if you're gonna split it further, you're gonna go through the plating process.
I guess we need to think, what's the downside to allowing some kind of another way to split it easily? Without making people spend a bunch of money doing something that really isn't gonna do them any good.
Yep. But at the same time, I think the county would want to know, how is that land gonna look when it's fully developed out?
Yeah.
Should we be allowing splits along the section line roads, whether it's a county section line or a township section line road? Should we be allowing that? But then on the converse, should we make a person construct a new public road? It's gonna be a township road, it's not gonna be a new county road, so it's gonna be another road for the township to have to maintain for an additional 3 or 4 lots, potentially, that are out there, that may be built on or may never be built on in the future. So, because once it's platted, once it's recorded, it's a public road, whether anybody's living on it or not. So yeah.
Is it easy for somebody that wants to make a change someday in the future to, you'll research the public records versus just wait until they ask you and you say, nope, you can't do that?
I say that again, what are you trying to, is it easier for
Is it?
the public to research that, or?
They can look at
I would say
parcel
no.
search.
Well, probably not, because it's not on, the public won't know whether that land has been split. They would have to check with my office, and I have a way of determining whether that land has been split or not.
Wouldn't a parcel
In other words,
search tell you?
A surveyor.
Parcel search could tell you, but it may not tell you when
Surveyor
the land was
would
split.
have knowledge enough or access to the public records enough to be able to tell his applicant,
Yeah.
no, you can't do that.
I have a way, I have a layer in my GIS or computer program where I know what the parcels looked like in 2016 at the time that the subdivision regulations were adopted. So when I pull that up and I see a division of land that looks different than what the parcels looked like in 2016, I'm able to say, okay, there was a split of this land here, so when did that occur? Then I go back to my records and say, oh, okay, in 2018, we had a parcel split on that property. If the colors, and Alan probably knows more than what I'm talking about here, because he deals in all that, if I have the 2 colors and the 2 parcels match, then I know that parcel was always a 17 acre, always a 20 acre parcel, and so it's still eligible for a split, potentially. So it's easier for me. It'd be more difficult for the public, but I would want the public to reach out to me to begin with instead of assuming something on their own.
But if you're out looking for a parcel to buy, you don't know to ask, I guess.
You may not know, but yeah, you should really just check with me first whether that
Yeah.
parcel is illegal. Yeah, I've been in this business for 33 years,
Yeah.
so it's obvious to me. It may not be obvious to that other person, so it's hard that way.
Realtors, are they aware of this?
Realtors,
Because
Yeah, they're-
if somebody's looking to buy land, say if they're going through a realtor, looking for around.
I mean, I can't speak for all the realtors, I would hope that a lot of them are, so, but yeah, I don't, it's hard getting that word out to, hey, check with me. Because again, we've got a third of the county that has to abide by these regs, 2/3 of the county doesn't, so if you're way out west, you don't have to bother talking to me about buying a piece of ground. I do get calls, and I get a lot of calls, I would say, from people out west wanting to know if they can split this farmhouse off, or if they can buy this piece of ground, it's way out west, and that's great. I'm glad that they're checking,
And there's some kind of realtors association or whatever. Have you ever been invited to speak to that? And give them a kind of a update on what things they should think about?
It's been a few years, but I've spoken to the Realtors Association probably 2 or 3 times in my time here, and Darcy has as well, you know, with the sanitation in. So, yeah, every once in a while we get invited, whether it's the entire group of realtors or if it's an individual office. So, yeah, I've spoken and given them, you know, help on what to look for and how a lot of the lot splits and the zoning works. And so, yep. So,
What was the intent of limiting it to one lot split?
the intent was the idea that an additional house or an additional split on that property is not going to be a big hindrance to how the character of the neighborhood is going to look, the maintenance of the road with like an additional culvert. When you start getting into multiple splits, now you're starting to kind of turn the area and turn that parcel from, say, agricultural to residential, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but at some point in time, the county should have the right to know, well, what is that development going to look like, so we can review it to make sure we have a drainage plan in place. You know, if you just start splitting off ground, then what happens, you can start having drainage issues, whether it's draining out to the ditch or draining on somebody else's property. You know, if it's in the zone area of the county, now you may be dividing out parcels that are going to make it very difficult to get permits to be able to build a house or build a nice shed, or better yet, get a wastewater system and a well on there in compliance with the codes without the need for variances or waivers from the director and all that. And so that's really the purpose of that subdivision reg, is to make sure that what is being developed will be something that can be issued permits for relatively easy without creating all kinds of problems here. So I had those.
Don, this may be a question for you, since we kind of worked through the direction of the county commission through you. What have you heard, have you had any conversations, have you heard any hubbub about any direction that we might take on battery storage or data centers?
You mean like creating regulations or?
Yes.
No, I haven't. But I need to probably find out, because to find out whether they want regulations or they're just gonna get a, development agreement or anything like that, or, no, I haven't heard anything from them.
I know we can't really push things.
Right.
It's a one-way ticket
But
kind of.
I'll find that out and you will know that answer by the next meeting.
Yeah, that's fine. I was just kind of curious, because that's kind of weighing on our mind, because our neighboring counties are going through
Yeah.
some of those situations now. And it would be really cool. Okay, we lost a couple pounds of flesh when we went through the commercial wind energy hearings. And we kind of made the regulations the conditions to the conditional use permit up on the fly in that situation. And then we made regulations after the fact. Just as kind of, it'd be kind of, I'm being selfish from my seat, could we get ahead of it?
Be proactive on it.
Yep.
Yeah. Instead of reactive.
I'll find out what they want to do, and then even before the next meeting, one way or another, then Mark can email out to you. So like, if they want them, then you need to think about it.
Just kind of trying to understand what the direction of the county commission is.
I've read some articles, it's all over the country, people are
Yeah.
starting to regulate that.
There have been rumors floating around of battery storage facilities in Reno County that have been proposed and whatnot.
Yeah.
Well, and with a new power plant, I mean, you would think that would attract industry that consumes lots of power.
Well, battery storage is not just, it's many different, could be many different things that could, other businesses, it's not really battery storage, but yet, what, data centers, whatever, is that related? So I don't know.
Got one battery storage place over by, what is it, Haven or wherever it is that solar place put in.
But they aren't, they're just storing the raw product, not not an energy storage.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Warehouse.
Solar King? King Solar. King Solar. Yeah, so.
But they're not hooked up.
They're not, no, they're just,
But those two things do tend to follow
One follows the other.
the gas generation plants that are
Yeah.
popping up all over.
Yeah. I was just kind of curious if you'd heard anything and whether or not we'd get some direction somewhere. or
you just
not.
want us to have another major project, don't you?
Well, you know, not,
You're tired of text amendments.
well, not so much. Just
Well, in our
looking forward to
neighborhood,
being proactive rather than reactive.
in our neighborhood, I say our, Russ and I counted on my way over, there's 6 nice big red signs about battery storage within about a mile. So
Somebody's upset.
That doesn't,
the word's on the street.
doesn't take very many people to start putting those up, so.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Mark, you've kind of given us a list, and I'm going to summarize, and you help me out if I'm overstepping. But it sounds like home occupations, parking and loading space requirements, and then the public roads and subdivisions and plan and the platting requirements for rezoning agriculture land. Those kind of go hand in hand. So
Yeah, they
could. So those are the kind of the 4 topics that I heard you mention. Are those are the 4 that we probably
I
need
could
to
add a
look
couple
at?
more
Well, I'm
that I have.
all right. You look at your
That aren't on the list.
You look on your crystal ball.
Yeah.
Which ones are if these tend to be a pain point? Not I say pain point might not be the right way of describing it, but a source of conversation for you when you get applicants. What else is there that might ease your pain when it comes to? Because if we could write something to the regulations that makes some sense that you can approve by right, it would I think that makes it's logical in my mind.
Yeah. The home occupation thing, I think it's, not that I want to add additional regulations or requirements. Home occupations are businesses that like one person and a person outside the home travels to a house and operates some type of business, whether it's accounting or, it could even be like bookkeeper, those types of things. Nothing is causing, a big traffic problem within, say, a residential subdivision, for example. I mean, that's something that's on the list, maybe just to kind of help clarify and put basic regulations in place. Say, hey, if you can hit all 4 or 5 of these requirements, then you can be considered a home occupation, and no further review, no further conditional use permit review is necessary. I don't get a lot of those, and so I don't know the appetite of the board. If you think we need to have a lot of clarification on something like that, I mean, that could be something that would rise to the top. I think if I had to pick on the surface of everything without hearing your discussion, the parking and loading space requirement is kind of aggravating to me a little bit, because you've read enough of my reports, and they all read the same pretty much, that the applicant's requesting a waiver of this, and if all that gets modified or changed in such a way then that topic really shrinks, and you're not reading a page and a half about parking and waivers and the requirements of paving or not paving. That would be something for the here and now. I think, the public road thing, I think is important though as well. I mean, what are we going to, I think, do we drastically change that around? Do we change the planning requirements around to something lesser? I mean, do we put in place something where, if you have 40 acres and you want to split your property like into 3 residential lots or 4 residential lots, you still have to plat, but maybe it can be a private road, and you go through a short plat process, and then you're good to go. This board reviews that versus rezoning and full-blown drainage plan, full-blown road construction plat, preliminary plat, final plat. This would be just what we would call like a short plat. I know some communities will allow you, say, up to 4 divisions, on a property be served by essentially an easement, an egress easement. It's a private easement. Still have to do a drainage plan because we still don't want you to be able to drain, your runoff into the township county ditch, nor on somebody else's property. So you still have to do a drainage plan, but it wouldn't be a full-blown subdivision plat. Now, what I mean by full-blown subdivision plat is like what we talked about in our training, where you're coming in, you're doing a preliminary plat, and you're developing a road plan. We're having a public hearing on the preliminary plat, and then we come back and then we review a final plat, and it's similar to what the full-blown plating process is, but it'd be a little bit quicker and probably a little less costly to people.
Would that subject have fit in with our recent golf course discussion where there were comments and concerns about the roads on that property?
It could have, if they were going to be doing like public roads, or we could have required them to do like this short plat. Sometimes people will call it a short plat, where they will delineate where the private road is going to be. We could require that to be platted and everything, and then that way we would know where the easement is for that private road, and we could have set the standard right then and say, well, because this board changed it to 20 feet, remember the secondary road, that could have been called out in the plat, and then that could have been recorded, so then it would have been known to have, it had to be 20 feet. So it would have some benefits in a development like that, potentially.
Well, I guess I just think of the Cottonwood fire in that situation, and that was done years ago, but road standards do have some safety issues tied to them, so I would hate to throw that by the wayside.
We saw the product in that situation of a private road maintenance program.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big concern.
A couple of the other ones that I had on the list was just a general review of the definitions. I've been working through some situations here, and I know some of our definitions need to be modified, probably from what they are, and clarified. And so there could be a general review of definitions in there. Do we need to add definitions? Do we need to take away definitions? One of the bigger ones that I just recently saw, and it just came to my attention, was in Article 4 of the subdivision regulations, where when we changed the lot width to lot depth ratio and the minimum frontage requirement of zoning parcels, I did not, I'll take the hit on that. I did not look at Article 4 in the subdivision regulations, which still has the minimum width of 165 feet, still has the lot width to lot depth ratio of 3:1 and all that. So that should have been modified at the same time to match what Article 13 was. So right now there's a conflict. It's an easy fix, but it is a conflict right now that I missed on that. And so if you read Article 4 in there, it'll mention the width to depth, has the wrong frontage requirement in there, wrong minimum depth requirement, and it doesn't match Article 13. So that's something that at some point in time needs to be fixed. I mean, people aren't beating down the door to do subdivision plats where that's an issue, but we need to change that as well, so.
Okay, so I'll ask the question. There's 4 items, the four main items, I wouldn't say big, 4 main items that you mentioned there. We tackle all 4? What's your appetite?
I probably don't, right now, I probably wouldn't have the time to tackle all 4 in a timely manner.
So let's say we tackle 2, What, in your opinion, which two are the quick hits that we could get done in a short amount of time that would have the greatest
If I
impact?
if I had to jump off the fence, and it sounds like you're making me jump off the fence here, I would say the parking and loading space requirement, that's one article here, and I would also say probably amending Article 4 in the subdivision regulations. That would be the easiest. I think the quickest one would be the parking and loading space. Now, I think, we can certainly have a discussion while we're looking at that on subdivisions, subdivision plats, and this board can give me some direction on how they want me to write the new regulation. So I think there's some value in providing some input there before I give you a proposal without getting into too great a detail, because, that's a major discussion point with this board is, and staff for that matter, I don't want to shortchange us, should it be a public road, should it be a private road? I don't know if staff is even, in agreement on what it should be. It's just been something that's been discussed. At that point in time.
That's gonna take a little bit of discussion on that. That'll take some lengthy discussion, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
To do that. That's why, we can certainly try and tackle that, but, to have something ready for this board to discuss, say, in May, I don't know.
Yeah, because when I was discussing with Mark, I'm not even sure I'm in the same place as I was back then. I don't know. Because it's one thing, you create a subdivision, you shove it on the township that's already struggling to maintain what they already have. And if you don't have it public, then you end up with something that's not maintained at all. I don't know, whose fault is that? I don't know. I don't have an answer. I just don't know anymore.
It could go either way.
Yeah, it could, yeah, exactly.
I guess,
Well, I think I asked this question before, but I don't remember the answer. If I create a township road, it seems like I should have to contribute some tax money to that township to maintain that road.
Well,
Is that in place?
you will if you're living there, but you can create a subdivision and never build a house on it, and the township's out there maintaining that road.
And there's
Yes.
no road assessment unless there's a,
Other than the tax rate on
Improvement,
a subdivision lot.
But I think what you're saying, Gar, there's like certain incentives or certain requirements that you can require development to contribute a certain amount of money, during that development here to help that township maintain that road, or even the county for that matter,
I just don't know what the process is. If that's not in place, it
It's
seems.
not in place, so yeah.
In my mind, it should be in place, and that would help eliminate this
There's
problem.
counties that do that, there's counties that'll put that in place.
We touched a little bit on this in a previous conversation, but some of it is the townships don't raise the mill levy to match where they're at, and sometimes they're struggling to find the skill level to operate the machines to keep up the road. So there's a really
It's more than just money.
well, money is mill levy. That's as simple as that. I mean,
They don't like to raise the mill levy.
I don't know. You've been to that. You've been to that well
Been to
many
that
times.
many times, yeah.
It's we don't like to raise taxes, but also the townships can do that to a point to help themselves out.
Sometimes they have to.
Yep.
Their backs
And
are
don't
against the
when they
wall.
need to.
Huh?
And don't when they need to.
Yes, exactly. I have kind of an unrelated question, Mark. We got several items on here, on your list, and I'm wondering if they're even pertinent any longer, or why, how much control do we have over those items? Can we, just delete them, like livestock confinement?
Yeah.
Isn't that Department of Ag, pretty much?
Pretty much until you get above a certain number of head, then it turns into potentially a conditional use permit, but almost nobody ever gets to that point in time, but yeah. These are all items that the board had brought forth, 2023. Yeah, but we don't have a lot of say-so in something like that, though, because it's ag.
Like creating public land, recreation, green spaces, I mean, that's that's a great idea, but is it realistic? Is Reno County gonna create public grounds and green spaces? Or are you gonna require that of the developers? I don't know.
Well, and so,
I mean, it's popular in certain metropolitan areas that they do like the green spaces and whatnot because they're so densely populated and built.
I don't recall the person that said that, so there's a concept out there, it's called a conservation subdivision, and the way conservation subdivision really works, the principle behind that is you get away from the cookie cutter type subdivision. 3 acre minimum, road serving, all that, you gotta give me this, and there's no wiggle room and something like that. What a conservation subdivision concept would be is like, okay, you may be zoned R1, you have to have 3 acre lots. If, for example, we do a conservation subdivision, maybe we can let a developer have 2 acre lots in the R1, which is like, hey, that's a violation, we can't do that. But if it's a conservation subdivision, the county will let you have 2 acre lots, which gives him more lots to sell. And in exchange for us giving you a greater density, that developer in turn gives the county green space. So now we don't have 3 acre lots, 5 acre lots, and we have 4 acres of, I don't want to call it wasteland, like grassland or so, stuff that's unused, so you give us those 2 acre lots, and in turn you give us a green space that would be dedicated to the people in that area to maintain. It wouldn't be given to the county or the township to maintain, so keep that in mind. And so I think that's kind of what that was maybe referring to a little bit. That's one idea behind it.
I think another piece of that is, or could be, if you talk to the fire chief, fire concern is very real. And having fire breaks, natural fire breaks, we're a long way from getting that implemented, but it does seem like we should be thinking about it anyway.
Right. That's something that could be put in place, but yeah, with that, like if you had a lot of floodplain on the property, and obviously we don't want houses in a floodplain, so maybe if we can get a developer to concentrate his entire development up and out of the floodplain and leave the floodplain alone at the natural area, if he's willing to do something like that, because he's losing land that he could develop. So to kind of entice him to agree to that, we give him a greater density so he's not losing money on his development. In exchange, he provides us as an open space area. And so that was kind of the idea. It was popular, I first heard about it like in the 1990s.
Well, we had that out on the south of Haven, that, I forget what that was, but, the property didn't seem very desirable.
Yeah.
And,
Oh, yeah.
remember that one? That would be a case where maybe smaller lots could have enhanced that property.
Right. Yeah. So that's, right now, creating public lands or recreational, the county's not interested in creating a parks department or anything like that.
I'm calling it public works.
Yeah, it would be another division.
Yeah.
So, but I think that would be one concept that could fit under that idea.
See, Don is probably already ordering his retirement cake.
I think on your list, I think the gun range thing, now, private gun ranges, we wouldn't get into, anything like that, but, public gun ranges, certainly we would. Yeah.
What about
If we're open to the public.
heavy industrial? Is there a definition for heavy?
No. I don't know the person that wrote that, what the intent was, but,
Is there a definition for industrial?
well, it'd be along the lines of manufacturing plants and that. Commercial is usually when you're selling, or most part, you're selling a product. Industrial would be when you're manufacturing products.
Bigger than home occupation.
Bigger than home occupations, yeah. So heavy industrial would be car manufacturing plants,
Asphalt plants
asphalt plants,
going in right now.
companies that work with steel and metals, and molding car parts, airplane parts, that type of stuff. Usually you'll have light industrial, and then heavy industrial, and then, heavy, yeah. It's usually those two, the heavy.
Moving that in.
I can't think of the third one right offhand, but.
Was that in the zoned area?
Yes.
So-
Got a question for you, though. We're talking about this kind of stuff. Their APAC apparently is putting in, it looks like an asphalt plant up on K-14.
Yep, temporary.
Is that, no, it's temporary?
It's temporary asphalt plant, that's permitted under our special event requirements, yeah. And so, it's a special event, it's, believe it or not, it's classified like if the circus is coming to town, or if you're running a music concert.
What's your definition of temporary? Less than a year?
Less than a year. I don't know if it's in there or not,
I don't know. I'm just curious, what where they're gonna take their product? Why they need an asphalt plant right on K-14, and they're gonna resurface the highway, or?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
they're
think
doing the
they're-
highway.
Oh, they are?
Yeah, so it's
Okay.
That's why they're putting it there.
temporary, I don't know if there's an exact definition, I'd have to look, but,
That'll be a damn mess for a year.
so that's another section of this Article 19, I believe, where, you have certain events that people want to put on.
Okay. I've
Yoga
just been
Days would
curious
be
as to what that
one.
was going in, I
Yeah.
finally figured out.
So this is one where, this actually is a level 5 type of, or type 5 type of special event, which rises to the level where it takes Board of County Commission approval to be able to approve something with it. It'd be like hosting a music concert, for example, or potentially a car show, or a race, something like that. That would be a type of special event. So a 1 or 2 time thing, that'd be probably one of your definitions of temporary. It's something that just occurs once or twice a year. It's not something that's going on for years on end. Here's a situation where it's a temporary asphalt plant. It's being built now, so they can get ready for paving season. They're gonna pave the highway this spring and summer. When that's done, then that land use goes away.
They built one that's doing K-96.
Yeah, there's one on Langdon
I
Road
just gotta
at
figure
US
out, I just
50.
gotta figure out
Yeah.
how to get
Yeah,
into
for
Hutch
this-
now
that-
without going down that highway.
Yeah. So, the one out on 50 was unzoned.
You're right,
So
right.
they could just do it. This one just happened to be in the zoned area, so in our regs, we have it to where, county commission has to review that. And so, because you think about it, it's like, okay, well, where's their entrance to this property? Are they gonna put it right on the corner of 2 roads? I mean, all kinds of, if it's a circus, or if they're selling product, well, are you gonna have stacking of vehicles spilling out onto the road? Or are the vehicles gonna be intermixing with people walking up to purchase the products? These are all things that, we take a look at. Many of the special events I approve in-house here, sending it to other departments for review. This one actually rose to the level where it takes county commission approval, so you'll see that going on, and then after they get the highway paid, you'll see it being torn down and land restored. Yep.
Where's that at?
It's down on K-14, the north of Silver Lake, between that and Sun City, I think.
Yeah, it is Sunset.
Yeah. Good question. Yep, so.
I knew you'd have the answer to that.
Yeah. I actually knew about that
I
one.
asked you
yeah.
a month ago and I forgot.
Oh, really? Yeah. The other ones on that list, at this time, is not gonna be discussed really. You're talking about building codes or nuisance regulations, and that's not really probably something that's on the table, at this point in time, so.
Did I see a neighboring county? I think I saw a post from Harvey County that they were taking a survey on nuisance regulations.
I did not see that.
That surprised me.
I have not heard that.
Okay.
But,
It It was just a social media post. They were
Okay.
taking a survey or.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
It'd have to be something on a complaint basis, they're not gonna.
We tried that at one point, and it really got to be complicated, because there's a lot involved with nuisance regulations, as far as, you know, how do you enforce them, where does it go? You know, you don't want to take a nuisance code and regulation to district court. I mean, so you have to develop like a codes court, and so that takes a lot of effort, a lot of money to do that. So, but, that's all I really had with mine right now. I don't know, other thoughts of the board, other things that when you run across, I mean, I could probably literally go through every section, see little tweaks, you know, that need to be done here and there. I thought we took care of a big one here with the shipping container, because there was an actual conflict in there between different articles, and so that was good that we got that cleared up. Article 15, which deals with all the conditional use permits, there's always, some land uses will have a listing of, you know, 1 to 10 conditions of approval that have to be met if you're gonna do that type of land use. Again, cell towers was one of those where there was like 5 or 6 things that they had to meet, and unfortunately, all those were prohibited now by statute, so we had to tweak that, and so that would be another place to look for amendments that we can do in the future.
What's the flavor of the board? I'll put my 2 cents in after everyone else is done.
I think, Steve, you know, you brought up, you know, the asphalt plant, I think that section could probably be refined as well, maybe to make it a little bit more clear, potentially. I don't know how yet, just first thoughts, you know, maybe give samples of what is a special event and when does it take this board. Special events, you know, usually you don't want to bog down necessarily with this board. Usually they're going to be handled administratively by me.
County commission, yeah.
Or take it directly to the county commission versus, because usually special events, oh yeah, we're looking at doing this in, you know, 6 months, 4 months or less here, and, you know, by the time we run it through this process and then take it up to them, yeah, we're pushing the envelope on that, but that's certainly something as well. I mean, I think all the articles could be, you know, tweaked and made more clear, but.
I'm sure, you know, you gotta go back through them all eventually.
Yeah.
But, you know, we gotta look at the hot
Right,
right now, the
right.
ones that we think,
Yeah, that's what I'm more interested in right
you know,
now.
like your parking thing. Yeah, I mean, we make a lot of waivers on that. Is there something we can do to clarify that, reduce those? But on the flip side, you know, there needs to be some requirements.
Yeah. And that's the way this was. This was the parking regs when we adopted it, were put in place as a benchmark for somebody to start at. You know, inevitably, when you're doing a commercial or industrial type of land use of any type of significance, you know, the first thing they're gonna wanna know from the zoning people are, well, how much parking do I need to provide? That's gonna be the first thing, you know, they wanna know. So these regs provide that benchmark clarification. It says, okay, if you're building this building and doing this land use, you gotta give me 1 parking space per 200 square foot.
On the flip side, you know, usually we get into that waiver request as a part of another conditional use permit,
Yeah.
you know, thing. So it's, somebody wants to put in a business and they need a conditional use permit, and then they have the waiver, they deal with it. So, I mean, it's there, it's an obstacle. It's not an obstacle, but it's something they've got to think about.
It's good that we have
Find
it.
some guidelines, you might.
I think it's good that we have it in place that we can waive that.
Yeah.
You know, that's one thing
Yeah.
versus saying, well, no, you know, you have to have 25 parking spaces for your 3-person
Flexibility
business.
in there, but, you know, how do you change the regs to build flexibility into
Yeah.
those without shooting yourself in the foot,
Yeah.
so to speak?
And this does that versus saying, okay, well, in addition to, you know, you having to put in those 25 spaces, if you don't want to do that, now you're going to get and do a variance. So then another public hearing, another application, and then, we'll listen to the fact that, well, I've got 3 employees, but a 5,000 square foot building. I don't have the need for 25 spaces. So now we're hearing another case and more money out their pocket and more time and effort. So if there's something that we can do to have some requirement, but yet also that flexibility, and I don't know what that looks like yet.
See if we can simplify it or, streamline it somehow.
Yeah.
But, on the flip side, like I said, I think we do need some guidelines on it.
Yeah, I'm not for just eliminating the whole section,
No,
yeah.
no.
Jack?
I don't sense that we have any real hot spots. I mean, we speculated on some possible up-and-comers, but I don't know how far into the future it's prudent for us to try to work. I mean, we can create all sorts of disastrous requests that might come along. I guess I did not have the opportunity to live through the wind situation, and what that was like is, what you described, trying to build a plane while it's flying.
Exactly that. We were picking up the spilt rivets in the bottom of the fuselage, trying to stick them in little tiny holes as the plane was flying. And there was a gaping hole in the fuselage as they were dripping out on the ground. So that's about the best way I can describe that process.
So, trying to balance we want to attract development and positive energy, and do you do that by anything goes, or do you do it by very strict rules, or do you shoot for a sweet spot in the middle and give yourself some conditional use permit possibilities?
I think it's kind of like what we were just discussed about the parking, the parking and loading space requirements. We've got to put something out there. And then if it starts to be a pain point, then we can adjust that as we go. You're right, we need to find a sweet spot so we don't say not no, but heck no. We want to be open for the conversation, but yet we want to have some guidelines for that conversation.
Well, like parking, if we say it has to be paved, well, probably not always, but
Right.
if there's houses, to the north, and you're gonna put down limestone gravel in Kansas, they're gonna be dusty. So, yeah, we might want it paved.
So, yeah, it's finding that sweet spot, you're right. We want to be inviting, but yet we want to make sure we got our bases covered.
So what does it look like if a developer comes to your office and says, yeah, Reno County is like our #1 pick for a new data center? Where do you go with that? Well, we don't really have any regs, so, or we'll mix them up real quick, or...
Just like any other undefined type of proposal, if it's not laid out, like in Article 15 with specific conditions of approval, then it's a conditional use permit, and you gotta get that past Planning Commission and the County Commission. And we'll come up with a certain level of conditions of approval, and if they can meet that, then great. Like I say, they'll get the staff report, and they'll be able to argue if they don't like my recommendations, and this board will get a chance to review my recommendations, and you can agree with that. You can add your own requirements if you would like, and then that person will have to develop it according to that standard.
And our
And it
developers,
also includes the input from the public hearing, because we can, there's many avenues that the information comes in that we go, didn't think about that. We make a little note, and then as we discuss, that may or may not become another condition.
This board hasn't done it lately, but Russ, you recall, after we closed the public hearing, How many meetings did we have where you, as a board, reviewed the public hearing record with the winning case? I mean, you had several.
There were lots of public input on that.
Yeah, you had tons of public input, so you can't imagine trying to make a decision that night. And so you had time yourselves to review the public record, and then you had a couple meetings, maybe?
At least a couple.
At least a couple of meetings, you know, where you discussed it.
Is your memory better than mine? I've kind of shut that back
Yeah.
in a corner of my mind.
Yeah, Harley was there.
But it's been, I know we had at least a couple meetings, if not three, that we went through the public comment and tried to sort through what was.
At different locations too,
Yeah.
What's that?
at different locations.
Yes.
So basically, what I think what
4-H encampment building and
response to
Fox
what
Theater
Garth is
and
saying, I
Right.
think
the hotel that isn't there anymore.
Yeah,
you have an undefined thing like, you know, battery store or data center or something, then you make up the regulations as part of the conditions of the spec.
That's correct.
Conditional use permit.
That was building the plane while we were flying.
Yeah, exactly.
So for these couple of topics, are they complicated enough and controversial enough that we want to start putting the fuselage together before?
Well,
Get the order.
we need to get direction from the county commission, that's what Don's gonna put some feelers out and see what they,
It doesn't mean that you can't do your own research. It just means that this board won't be doing any
Right.
action on it.
Mark,
Yeah, I went down that rabbit hole and I know less now than I did 3 hours earlier.
Yes. Yeah.
what's your experience with developers and investors knocking on your door? What rigs do you have for data centers? And if you say, well, we don't, we have this conditional use permit, is that scary to them, or would they prefer to have a clearly defined, yes, you can, no, you can't checklist? I guess I'm just thinking.
I don't have a lot of those types of
What is Reno
large,
County
a lot of
look
those
like?
larger developments are gonna obviously look to the city, because that's where public infrastructure is, but, to say that, I think everybody likes to know what rules they're playing by with the game. I mean, it's hard to tell a developer, oh, it's just a conditional use permit, and we can make up whatever, rules we feel like are gonna be satisfactory to let this development potentially take place.
You've got to survive a public hearing.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's scary on that
totally
sense.
negotiated at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
So this way, if you have rigs, you got a starting point. They know what you're expecting.
They know the minimums.
And the minimum, you try to conform to that.
They're gonna know the minimums, but they also know at the same time that those minimums can be
Amended.
amended and tightened down if we see fit. But say that, every developer that comes knocking on my door has that same expectation, that they want to know what rules are, but I say, well, the rule is a conditional use permit, and here's a starting point potentially, but yet that can also be tightened. The golf course went through that. Look what you did. I mean, I had conversations with them on the roads, and we put a set of conditions in place, and then this board modified that. So no matter what it is out there, those rules can always be modified by this board. You have that ability with it. That's part of that conditional use permit. The basic set of rules may be fine if you don't have a neighborhood within a quarter of a mile, but if you have a neighborhood a quarter of a mile away, maybe some more stringent rules need to be put in place to potentially allow a type of land use to go in there. So, yeah, I think those people are always going to want to know what the basic rules are, but that's not the way it works in this county.
So what I'm hearing, parking and loading space requirements, Mark, is probably gonna be one of them. What's the other? I would like to pick two that we'd work on.
I think a general review of these definitions.
Yeah.
Because those always need some clarity and whatnot. I mean, that can be fairly extensive because you're looking at a lot of definitions, but,
could be.
that way we
Yeah, I
don't
don't-
rely on Mark to provide us those.
Yeah, there's-
Clarity.
There's some in there that probably need to be modified, but, at the same time, we don't need to define every single term. I think what we could do, part of that amendment, is that undefined terms shall be defined as per Webster's dictionary, for example. I mean, that's typically what we do, because well, if the term's not in there, then what's the definition? Well, it's always common knowledge that you go to the dictionary, but it probably should be put in paper that that's what we're doing. But at the same time, we don't need to define every single term in the world that could potentially be out there. We don't need to define what a chair is, what a desk is, and get crazy that way. But there could be some, I know of one definition that needs to be, modified right here, but I'm sure there's probably, other ones that could be tweaked as well out there.
Does that sound okay with this board? Those are the two topics that we get started on, and then we move from there. I think it's pretty much.
And that may change based off of Don's conversations, and, I can try and provide research on, potentially some of these other topics, like the plating requirements, for example. I mean, I'm thinking, what's Harvey County doing? What's our neighboring counties doing? That'd be a good place to start. What's Sedgwick County doing, as far as the plating requirement? I mean, I don't know if we would see additional development. I mean, I haven't had a lot of requests for like a third split, on a property, but it's coming. And it's coming because every parcel out there is being split. Every 40 acres out there, and that's the way I always think about part. You may own an 80 or a quarter, but I always try and get people to think in terms of 40. That each one of those 40 acres is allowed one split. So even though you have one deed for a quarter section, 160 acres, you're not just allowed one split, on that whole quarter. You're allowed one split per 40 acres, meeting the regulation requirements here. So, and I'm trying to get people to start thinking in those terms. And it's hard because whether they own two 40s or one 180, they're thinking it's just my one parcel here. And so no, you'd be allowed to have one split per that 40, so you could have potentially 4 home sites without going through any kind of plating requirement, that way.
Which to me, though, the problem is more when you get down to 20 or 10 and you want to split it 2 or 3 times because
Yeah.
most people don't want to own 40 acres just to build a house on.
See, that's
Can't afford it.
And that's what and the banks don't want to potentially loan on it either, and that's the
Yeah.
problem, They split off the 3 for their family member to build their house, and that's great, and now they want to split their house off, and
Yeah.
can't do it. It's stuck at 37, and now the bank won't loan on 37, they want that split into a 10, so that's.
I think we need to come up with some kind of a mechanism to make that a little easier.
So are we still looking for a possible second challenge?
I think the first one is the parking and loading space. The second one would be the general review of definitions. And let's get through those 2.
Okay.
And then we'll tackle, then we'll recircle with Mark and Don on the next one. That may be home occupation, it may be public roads and subdivisions.
Maybe we've got some direction.
Maybe-
from the commission on
maybe-
these other
Maybe
topics.
something entirely different.
All I just want to put on the table for consideration is the home occupation businesses. We want to make sure we have limited, but we also want to have regulations that encourages people to do business in Reno County.
Right.
And you can do that with
You get much interest in
laptops, 4 different locations, all operating out of this one home business. And so to limit it, but it can also encourage development of business in Reno County. So if they're looking for a third or an alternate, I'd suggest we strongly consider home.
And we did have a
occupation.
problem case with home occupation.
Yeah.
They were at the end of a dead-end road, and they were having delivery trucks going back and forth.
Yeah.
I forget what the name on that, but
Yeah. It was a construction company.
it started out as a small operation
Yeah.
and turned into something much bigger.
To answer your question, I don't have a lot of people inquiring about home occupations, but I don't know if that's because they don't know that there could be regulations, or they're just doing them without.
I think you just don't ask.
I think, I think the biggest thing, with that would be daycare centers, Many daycare centers are home occupation based, but we still need to be able to review and say, okay, well, where are people parking cars and what's going on, there, so. Because, we had a situation there a few years ago with a daycare center, and our regulations need to be modified based on that.
Regulated to a certain degree, licensed and regulated, but on the other hand, you do have the aspects like traffic and whatnot, which those regulations don't cover, I don't think.
Right. Yep. So, okay, well, I can, probably not next month. We have 2 public hearings next month, but probably I'll try and shoot for like maybe April, at least to start. And then I would encourage maybe this board to review Article 10 and 11, which is the parking and loading, and come up with your own ideas individually. If you have things that you want me to consider, then you can just email me. And then the general definitions is Article 1, right there in the front. And I'm not sure what I'll find with that. I know that there's at least one that needs to be modified, but there could be others, and certainly terms that we maybe need to add as well. And I'll have to look at Article 14 with the subdivision regulation. If I could throw that in at the same time, I may do that if that's a simple change as well.
Yeah, I'm with you, Harley, that the home occupation was there was a close 2 and 3.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I think for the quicker hit, I think we'll go with definitions, and then we'll tackle that one. That's on my mind also. Okay. Is there any other business we need to be brought before this board?
I've got some. Last month with the golf course, I was a little uncomfortable. Back when I was on the city planning commission, and Harley remembers, we used to have study sessions, and then the case would come up. Of course, we met twice a month, so the delay wasn't so bad. I was a little uncomfortable deciding that when the water rights issues came up, because I think there were people not telling the truth. And it's something like, we need to study that, and yet they and the public were looking for a decision that night. And I don't know if there's at some stage where a project is big enough that we need to have a study session. Most of them aren't, but.
Right.
But that one might have been where we could, get together, we look over the stuff, but we don't get together and say, well, I think somebody needs to talk to us about water rights, or somebody needs to talk to us about.
We can also recess.
So I know we can,
Not
but
close, but
it's awkward, because
Yeah, it
it's
is.
kind of like we're avoiding making a decision.
yeah, it does. It does.
I mean,
feel
even
like
though sometimes maybe we should, but I don't know.
If they exceed their water rights, they're gonna be notified and pay a hefty fine.
Well, when they were talking about perfecting their water rights, and I know that's a really weird,
there was.
Area of the law, and,
They had.
the county
water rights.
commissioner that was here said, well, it wasn't perfected, and they said it was, and.
And then they brought in, like, on the corner over, negotiating with the city for water.
Yeah,
And it's like,
but they're just negotiating, they don't have a deal.
right, like
Backup.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was a little uncomfortable in
Yeah.
retrospect
The
driving home.
rest of it, I didn't have a problem.
No, yeah.
But, and most people here were really just concerned with the water. They weren't concerned about traffic or noise or anything,
they just didn't want their wells going.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Remember, I asked, have those water rights been perfected? And they said,
Yeah.
well, no, but we got X number of years to do that. Well,
Yeah.
That's the type of thing that we ought to know more about it
Yeah.
before we make it.
but I don't think we were necessarily being told the truth.
And it was really hard to go back and say, are you sure about that? Like, I'm not a water right expert.
Yeah.
So you really hate to speak up and say,
Was that even in our purview?
well, it's
Well,
not, there
yeah.
are regulators for that.
I think
but-
so. If they're gonna suck up all the water, then we shouldn't allow it.
Well, and it would have been nice to know something that important was that they have a plan. a legal plan, whether it's
Yeah.
water rights that they have, whether they've been perfected or not,
Yeah.
or whether they're negotiating with another
Yeah.
provider.
I mean, I was on the subdivision committee the first time, so I remembered a little bit, but, that was
Yeah.
whatever it was, 12 years ago or something like that. I remember them saying, well, they had the wells and all this stuff, but I don't understand water rights.
In hindsight, yeah, nobody here would have authority on that, but I guess if it was a major concern with this board, we could have, tabled any action on that
Yeah,
conditional use permit until we could find some authority on that.
Right.
Or we could write a condition that says the permit would not be valid until the water rights are
I
perfected.
like that approach better.
Could have done that, but,
Yeah, I recall doing the study sessions at the city when you were on there
Yeah.
as well, because I was stationed over
Yeah.
there, as well, and that was always really uncomfortable because, you're bringing the board together and we're introducing all these cases, and there's some discussion, minor discussion, hey, okay, talk to me about this, and you're not in a public hearing setting. Certainly, you're in a public meeting setting, but not a public hearing setting, so it's like staff or this board could be introducing thoughts and questions prior to an official public hearing, and so I always thought that was a little sketchy to do something like that, and a little dangerous in that sense, and so I prefer, like what Steve said, don't ever be afraid, because it's this or any other type of developer, of just tabling and say, I'm not comfortable yet, because you heard a lot of we had 70 people here potentially here, and you heard a dozen of them, speak up, and that's a lot of testimony to take in place. Most of our public hearings aren't that way. But here's a situation where there's some questions, so table it and direct staff or direct the applicant to provide you some additional, testimony to make yourselves feel comfortable, in that sense. I mean, because, I would have been uncomfortable if this board decided the wind farm that night. I mean, you heard 4 days of testimony, and all of a sudden you're gonna sit up there in a span of 30 minutes, say yay or nay? Yeah, I mean, that, so I was pleased that the board decided to have several meetings afterward to review documentation here, and saying that this was a huge development, and a lot going on.
There's a couple different ways of going after it. You can table it, keep the public hearing open,
Yep.
and that way, that gives the applicant an ability to continue to speak.
provide
And
more
we can
information.
continue to take public input. If we do close the public hearing and then continue the conversation to the next meeting, it kind of ties our hands to what staff can give us. And what we can find as far as self-discovery in the meantime.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that approach better, of just continuing the public hearing and directing the applicant to provide some more clarification on what they're doing with water. Or like what Harley said, writing a condition of approval saying you cannot begin construction on this until such time as the water rights are perfected.
Proof is given to the planner.
Proof is given to staff.
What's involved in perfecting water rights, we don't know
I don't
that
know.
either.
Yeah, I'd have to.
Something can be done very easily, or is it something that takes
I don't know.
months and months?
They have to use the
I was gonna
water
say,
and prove it's been used.
I was gonna say, wouldn't that,
Have to
when,
put meters on the wells and.
So they can't do it.
all
so they
that.
can't do that because that'd be a catch-22 then, because they can't consume the water until they build the project, right?
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, so you don't know.
So we just needed to know more.
Yeah, because if you don't, then you
Thank
lose
you,
those.
Jack, for bringing that up.
Well, in this case, I really thought the state was the responsible party for approving or not approving the water rights. So I guess I felt like that was not in my line of sight to try to intervene on.
Yeah. But in our case, we didn't really know if it was approved or not. Because they had they had the water rights, but they hadn't perfected them, or they had perfected it. We didn't know, and we don't understand
That was
that.
the right.
Had
They had
old
the
water
right.
rights.
Yeah,
They hadn't been used yet.
If they had been used.
right.
So you have to
But
have,
we didn't understand that,
Oh, okay.
you know.
And so, yeah. So you could have asked for more clarification
Yeah.
on that, or some type of document that shows that, yeah, this is the water right for the property.
Yeah,
Could have gone that route. But like what Garda said, that's mainly a state, yeah, like, but you just wanted some more evidence that says they actually have done that, and they actually
Yeah.
do have that right, because you
Yeah.
remember, those rights were under a different owner, and you were hearing testimony that, oh, they were just transferred to us.
3 or 4 owners back,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, so, I get it, yeah, so.
I repeat, Jack, that's a good point to bring up, thank you.
Now,
Yeah.
the Evergy plant, I guess they really haven't decided which city it's gonna be in.
county.
It's gonna be in the county, so
It's county right now.
it's county right now. Will we do something
Well,
like that?
it's South Hutch extraterritorial zoning, so it's not gonna go.
But it's not annexed.
It's not gonna be
Annexed.
in the
Okay.
city limits, so yeah, there's a different.
But it's in there.
It's in their ETJ.
In their ETJ, so we will not hear that
Okay.
in that case.
Goes under their plan.
It's already been heard and by the city of South Hutchinson.
Okay.
So they've already had that public hearing, so it doesn't involve us whatsoever. Yep, so it's, yeah, it won't be annexed. It won't be annexed in the near future, so it's gonna remain out in the ETJ.
Appreciate your comments, Joe.
All right.
Yep. What else?
Anything else for this
Good
board?
conversation.
You have all your marching papers marked?
I think I do. I think I have some direction, so we will get working that in all my spare time. Right?
I move we adjourn.
Okay.
Moved and second that we adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.